This past week was Survivor Series. Up against the Survivor Series on TNT was back-to-back AEW Collision and Rampage. We have the ratings.
Oh boy, and now I predicted, was it last week or it was the week before, I predicted on Friday night that when Collision got moved over off of their regular night and they were against SmackDown on Fox, that they would beat them 8-1. They'd do 8 times the rating on SmackDown they did on Collision. And I believe at one point, when we got the numbers, it was 10 times. So now this was Collision's normal night, and we can't quantify because we don't get traditional ratings for Survivor Series. But Survivor Series, one of the big 4 events, whatever, I would assume that Collision was probably up slightly, but still I would question whether they cracked 350,000 people or not. I know nothing about this, so we'll see. Oh, we didn't talk about the Raw ratings, did we?
Well, we'll do those after this.
We will, because now we're all out of order, but that just made me think of it.
AEW Collision on Saturday on TNT, November 25th, and these were compiled by WrestleNomics, was watched by 317,000 viewers on average, which, it says here, went head-to-head with Survivor Series on Peacock. This was Collision's lowest total viewership ever in its normal time slot. And the good news is, it was up 17% compared to last week, where the total viewership was 270 in a different time slot.
Remember when they were up one time against a WWE event when Punk was still on Collision and it got like 500,000 and people were like, see, that proves he's not a draw. Apparently he drew 173,000 at least.
Well, then we also have AEW Rampage, which aired...
Oh, good Lord, they did that too.
It aired right after Collision on TNT. Oh, no, excuse me. It aired before Collision. It aired first at 7 p.m. I don't know why my voice cracked. It aired before Collision. Oh, this wacky show was on before Collision. Before Collision was what? Rampage.
Yogi!
At 7 p.m. Watched by 264,000 viewers on average. And that is down 6% from last week's 280 in its normal time slot.
Good Lord. How can you justify, again, as I've said, tying up 3 hours of a national cable station's airtime for a program that they are paying some amount of money for to draw under 300,000 and under all night, all through the primetime block? How long is this going to last?
Well, let me ask you this, because we'll quickly do the quarter hours, just because let's let people know what was on this show. What do you put on this show? If you're promoting a show, and in general the ratings haven't been that great, and you're going right up against one of the big pay-per-views, do you put things that your audience will want to go out of their way to see? Or do you put things that just hold the fort down and hope you can get people back next week?
Well, and first of all, it's not even a big pay-per-view anymore because most people don't even have to pay to view it with the Peacock thing. And that's why they continually say we're breaking numbers or breaking records and records, because even WrestleMania, when it was doing 1 million buys on pay-per-view, it wasn't available on a fucking platform that you could get for $5.99 a month or even free with the, paid admission or whatever the fuck they're charging for Peacock these days. So of course they're breaking records from when you previously had to pay $30, $40, $50, whatever the era was, to get the thing. But there's still no reason why that a competing wrestling program that was good, that had stars, that was interesting, that was, people wanted to watch to begin with, would be competitive on a national cable platform instead of Peacock, for fuck's sake. Because remember, it was Sting and Flair did a 7.8 rating on the first Clash of Champions, wasn't it?
Against WrestleMania.
Against WrestleMania, at the same exact time. And it was on pay-per-view, yes, but that was taking up several 100,000 of the wrestling fans of the day. And there were still fucking, what was it, 7-8 million people watching Flair and Sting. So the answer is, what do you put on? You don't just, this company doesn't just advertise something for the Collision against a WWE premium live event because they don't have anything interesting that they're advertising to begin with. I'm waiting to see something that's interesting besides MJF and Samoa Joe on their next pay-per-view. And with what they're doing, they're diminishing that rather than adding to it. So you can't just say, well, we'll book a big match, or like Gary Juster, you say in Ring of Honor, we'll book a cage. Because he was living 20 years beforehand. I had to tell him, well, that doesn't work anymore because they fucked the cage up. We'd have to build a fucking War Games cage. You want to pay for that?
Well, Jim, let's start with AEW Collision on TNT, November 25th, 2023. The opening segment, 8 to 8:15 p.m. Backstage promos and Claudio Castagnoli versus Daniel Garcia with picture-in-picture, 319,000 viewers.
Okay, well, that bodes well. I'm not going to interrupt you each time, but that bodes well for their keeping the audience, what little there is, because that's almost their average.
Claudio versus Garcia continued in segment 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m., along with an Eddie Kingston backstage promo. Kill Switch versus The Boys with the post-match with Adam Copeland, an ad break, and then a Copeland backstage promo. 301,000 viewers.
Okie dokie. We're still over 3.
Quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. Gravity and Commander.
Oh boy.
Versus Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black with picture-in-picture and a full-screen ad break. An ad break. 337,000 viewers.
Okay, I have no idea why anybody would join the party at that point, but they got them.
Well, they joined. Our next segment, I'll spoil it right now, the high point, 8:45 to 9 p.m., quarter 4. The finish of Gravity and Commander versus Buddy and Malachi. Top Flight and Action Andretti's backstage angle. An ad break. Julia Hart versus Lady Frost. Don Callis and Powerhouse Hobbs' backstage promo. 349,000 viewers.
Julia Hart. That's what that was from.
Well, we go from that to the
we're probably headed back downhill now.
The big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m. FTR versus The Righteous with picture-in-picture ads. And the post-match with the spooky Malachi Black. And then an ad break. 315,000 viewers.
And where do we go from here, oh great one?
We go here to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. A recap of something. Big Bill and Ricky Starks' live promo. Swerve Strickland and Mark Briscoe backstage promo. And Keith Lee versus Lee Moriarty.
Oh boy!
In the Battle of the Lees.
Lee Moriarty and Keith Lee walking down the street look like the number 10.
With picture-in-picture and full-screen ad break, 330,000 viewers.
So there's 319, 301, 337, 349, 315, 330. They're in the pocket.
Well, the pocket continues in the next quarter, which is quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Keith Lee versus Lee Moriarty continued, an ad break, a Keith Lee promo, and the beginning of Eddie Kingston versus Brody King. 283,000 viewers.
There's a hole in the pocket.
The next,
he's got one foot in his pocket and the other foot in the grave.
Well, the pocket continues 9:45 to 10 p.m. with 303,000 viewers for that match with picture-in-picture, and then a 1-minute overrun, 341,000 viewers.
For the 1 minute, the last minute of that match, where people were tuning in thinking all that shit's going to be over with by now.
And then following that, Rampage, 10 to 10:15 p.m., quarter 1,
Now, wait a minute. How do they get a one when they went right into Rampage's time slot? What was the first quarter hour of Rampage you were about to tell me?
And again, if you're not an AEW fan and a diehard one at that, you don't know that Rampage is going to be here. So if you're waiting for the movie,
right?
You want to see the Avengers, you think it may be on. Quarter 1, 10 to 10:15 p.m., according to this. Rocky Romero versus Hook with picture-in-picture and a post-match and an ad break. 271,000 viewers.
Well, that's what I was. Now, did Rampage air right after
or right before
Collision? Or was it before?
Well, before we go too much further, let's finish this thing up. Quarter 2, 10:15 to 10:30 p.m. Wheeler Yuta's backstage promo. Would you watch this show? Followed by Diamante versus Chris Statlander with picture-in-picture and full-screen ad break. 259,000 viewers.
Keep going.
Quarter 3, 10:30 to 10:45 p.m. Continuation of Diamante versus Statlander. The post-match with Mercedes Martinez and Willow Nightingale, apparently.
But there's never any women's wrestling in AEW.
A Daniel Garcia backstage promo. A Kingdom Live promo. Duke Davis and Gannon Jones.
Oh, for fun. What?
I have not seen these names before.
What? We haven't seen Mosh Pit Jones in forever. Is that his given Christian name?
I don't think this is him, but Duke Davis and Gannon Jones versus the Kingdom with an ad break. 268,000 viewers.
So Duke and Gannon picked up viewers.
They should bring them back. And finally, 10:45 to 11 p.m., the end of the program, quarter 4. Shibata, the man whose brain has come back, versus Wheeler Yuta with picture-in-picture.
You know what he said then? He said, finally, my brain has come back from Campbell by the Sea. Go ahead.
Against Wheeler Yuta with picture-in-picture and a post-match with Hook. 260,000 viewers.
Okay, but here's what I'm asking you. If that aired after Collision, from 10 to 10:15, they did 271,000 viewers. How do they get a 1-minute overrun at 10 o'clock of 341,000 for the Collision program? How does that work?
That is an excellent question.
And I demand that Thurston Howell III, who knows about all this stuff, give us an explanation for this.
I don't know if he's the person who will give us an explanation, but